Commencement, the beginning of a new era in higher education by Kate Colbert and Joe Salustio with contributions by Elvin Freites is now available for pre-order on Amazon. Get your Kindle edition or your softbound book. It's going to be
amazing.
Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to EdUp on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. And we've done this over 500 stinking times, making education your business. And of course, you know, if you listen to this podcast, along with Kate Colbert, my co-author and contributor, Elvin Freites, we are writing a book called Commencement, the beginning of a new era of higher education that is informed by 100 plus college and university presidential interviews. I actually think we're closer to 200 now. So I guess that means we have to write another book, but don't look forward to that second book anytime soon. We got to get the first one out. And then we'll go from there. You know, really appreciate everybody who listens to this podcast. We're fast, quickly approaching 200,000 downloads. We couldn't even believe it. I tell this story a lot that we had 10,000 downloads in our first 9 months, 10,000 downloads in our first 9 months. And then last month, we're in, what are we in? September. Last month in August of 2022, we had 15,000 downloads in the month and over 40,000 downloads over the last 3 months. So we're blown away by your support of this podcast, and we're going to keep it going because you've said you wanted more. I have spent some time to download new sound effects that I'll be unveiling on this and future episodes. So stay tuned, and maybe you'll hear something new from me. Got to keep it interesting here. Somebody that keeps it interesting for me is my guest today, ladies and gentlemen. Get ready. Here he comes.
Yes, put your hands up in the air.
For Adam McDonald, he's president of TouchNet Information Systems. Adam, what is happening?
Not too much. Thank you for having me. That was maybe the coolest introduction I've ever had. Thank you.
Well, let's see what else I got.
Come on, put your hands up in the air.
I got different versions of putting my hands up in the air, apparently. Adam, TouchNet Information Systems, heard a lot about TouchNet, in the work that you guys are doing in higher education. And, I think it would be a great starting point for us, for you to just kind of level set. What is TouchNet Information Systems? What do you guys do? How do you do it?
Yeah, you bet. Thank you. And thanks for having me, Joe. Really appreciate being here. So to start, just explain TouchNet briefly. So we provide a technology platform that allows our customers to take every payment and every campus ID use case across the higher education environment in a secure and easy to administer fashion, all from the mobile phone. So that's kind of what we do. We give the platform to help customers take every payment, every campus ID use case. Now that's kind of the kind of product view, but maybe to take it up a level, at TouchNet, what we do, we like to say our mantra is we advance the mission of higher education by simplifying how it works. We try to make things simple for our customers. That's our role. That's the kind of North Star we operate with as a company. And so, when I talk to people about this who maybe don't know higher education, sometimes they'll say things like, well, okay, I get simplification, but is it really that hard? Is it really that complicated? It doesn't seem that complicated.
How hard could higher ed be? I mean, come on.
Yeah, higher ed and payments, they're just payments, right? It doesn't seem like a big deal. And so, my response on that would be it's tremendously complex, right? I mean, the higher education environment, as you certainly know, Joe, from your experience, is like a small city, right? Or in some cases, not even a small city, it's like a city. These campuses have everything a city has. And so if you think about, if you don't have a unified payment experience, for example, if you're not using a TouchNet, then, and we see this all the time when we go to new customers, then what you tend to have is a very siloed payment experience where you use one set of technologies over here and a different set of technologies over there and a third set over here. And it's just kind of all over the place. And you can imagine the security ramifications of that for sure. Some of those products probably aren't as secure as you want. You have no ability to reconcile. You're managing all different types of gear and technology all across the campus environment, et cetera. So, that's what we do. We take all of those disparate systems, pull them into our platform. And like I said, we try and make it simple for our customers.
Amazing.
How complicated is it? I mean, how, you're working with a number of institutions. I mean, how complicated does it get? And do you think that the administrators at these institutions really understand how complicated it is because we have a tendency to look at things from the inside out, like, oh, well, we've
Yep.
got this and we do this and we get this technology and that technology, and nobody goes, okay, what is the student experiencing here? So what's that? There's a disconnect there sometimes within higher education. I'm sure there is other industries too, but we know it exists in higher ed because we do and always have for hundreds of years built things from the inside out, and it's only recently changing to be consumer focused.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Yeah. So yeah, we do have lots of customers, over 1,000, so we've seen this many, many times. And I think, in some cases, schools really understand how complicated it is. In other cases, they don't. And I kind of view that as our job as a company. We're higher ed focused. We've been doing this for years and years and years. And so we really see our role is to help come in and talk to schools about just really understanding how much more simple it could be, say, maybe not so much about how complicated it is now, but how much more simple it could really be and all the benefits that come from that simplification. Yeah, better security, PCI burden goes from this thing that a team of people are managing and pulling their hair out to a very simple matter. Everything reconciled. You can manage your expense from a credit card perspective, all sorts of benefits. And that, doesn't even get into the student side. Like you said, we often see student experiences that are hugely siloed or difficult or just hard, and nothing makes people upset like a bad payment experience. We make all those problems go away with a product like TouchNet.
Yeah, that's an important point, right? Where you say no, there's nothing, there's a saying that you never get a chance to make never get a second chance to make a first impression.
That's right.
And it's like every day we have to do that with our students because, it is this complications that exist that facilitates a student going, hey, you know what? This is way harder than I thought it would be. I'm going to go over here to this school instead. And that's one problem. And then the secondary problem of that, and I've seen this in multiple places, is schools not collecting the money that is owed, right? Okay, there is a business part of running an organization, whether you agree higher ed is business or not. You still have to collect tuition dollars so that you can reinvest it or do whatever the heck you want with it. And there's the AR that's out for years, or these carryover balances, or nobody's asking somebody to pay. And it's like, oh, why aren't the students paying? Well, you have to do something to facilitate that, right? And then you just go in and go, hey guys, I got money. I'd like to pay you right now today. I mean, maybe once in a while, but it's unlikely.
Yep. Yeah, you're absolutely right on both of those topics. From a student perspective, yeah, look, at this point, kids who are coming to college are digital natives. They've been using these technologies their whole lives. They're going to expect their the technology that is offered to them by their higher ed institution of choice to be similar to what they're used to. It's going to need to be mobile enabled. It's going to need to be easy. So could not agree with you more. And I actually have a lot of concern that some schools are going to fall a little behind, or, we know enrollment's an issue, right? Schools need to drive enrollment. And I just fear that if schools don't continue to invest in technology or aren't seen as a technology leader, they could, fall behind a little from a student perspective. Yep.
Don't fall behind, ladies and gentlemen.
Don't fall behind.
So what does this look like? All right. So talk to me about, I'm a higher ed president or CIO or whoever you work with. You could clarify that for me in particular, whether it's bursar, registrar, I don't know who. But you come in, what do? You like a consultation? You come in and say, hey, look, here's what we mapped this out from the student journey. We've looked at your systems. You're really in disarray. How does that look?
Yeah. So we generally work with the bursar, CIO's office on the card side, card office or auxiliary services. Yeah. And we generally just try to come in, understand what they're doing today, and really understand where we can help. Where can we simplify? So if we're talking about payments, what kind of payment infrastructure do you have today? What vendors are you using? What's your PCI burden look like? Because that is a big thing. We help.
PCI?
Payment card industry. So the regulatory process you have to go through to take payments. That can be pretty burdensome, but we have programs that can make it quite easy by using our technology and essentially shifting some of that burden to our company. So that's a huge one. And once schools really understand how much time and how much risk in a way they can take on by trying to do that themselves, that's usually a good reason for them to think about coming to TouchNet. So, but anyway, back to your question. Yeah, we just try to understand what they're doing today and really figure out how we can help. And make things simpler. That's, like I said, that's our goal.
So talk to me about the app part of this, or the student ID and the application, right? So I got the payment solution piece down. What does the ID management piece look like as you're talking about, I'm campus ID or mobile ID, access, dining, you have an app, is it customizable? How does it work? And I'm assuming it connects so that when it's your time to pay your bill, that kind of stuff. How does it integrate with current systems if you have an app, and how's your app work?
Yep, all the above. So basically, we provide a campus ID system that does all the traditional things. So it can use a plastic card, and it integrates with dining and print services and check-in and all those types of applications you would expect to come with campus ID. The really cool part over the last few years, though, is yes, we have really gone with the full mobile ID. And we now have our first, handful of customers who've gone live with mobile ID, which basically takes all of those campus card use cases, takes the plastic ID out of the equation and puts it all on the phone. And that does, you asked, you threw this in there, so I know you get this, and that does extend beyond, over even into things like access. So I can now use my phone to get into my dorm room or to get into a school building, as opposed to needing a brass key or the little number locks or those sorts of things, which is just tremendous. So it's a really cool, technology application, a total game changer. Look, schools who are using this tell us, they're used to printing tons of plastic cards, right?
Yeah.
Students lose cards. They don't lose their phones, or if they do, they don't do it very often, So it's just changes everything. We can, give privileges on the fly, just maybe to give you an example. We use our own access system here in our building. I'm sitting in TouchNet HQ in Kansas City, and we eat our own cooking, so we got our own system going here. And our head of sales wanted to get in the marketing closet to get some gear because he was going to see a customer a while back. And of course, we locked the marketing closet because if we didn't, all of the shirts and stuff would be given out immediately, right? So we got to be careful about that.
Never any marketing stuff left when you keep that closet open.
That's right, when we would need it. And so Jeff needed to get in there, and this was in the middle of the pandemic. There weren't very many people here. No one with access was here.
Access denied.
Access denied. So we could literally just, from a computer, give him one-time access. He went in, got his stuff, left, closed the door, done. Like super easy application of technology, where in the past you need to find somebody with the right card or the right key and get them in here in person. All of that goes away with the mobile ID type system. So it's really cool, real game changer, and where I think the vast majority of school is going to go over the next several years.
One of the things that happens with technology and schools, especially now as COVID, we go back to the whole COVID conversation that's been done 7 ways from Sunday, but, technology made itself known in much greater ways as people looked at how to do things virtually and, on the fly and, in response and so on. And so one of the common conversations that we have with university presidents as they come on this podcast is be very aware of the technology you're taking on board, because you don't want to take on too many pieces of technology that you're doing so many things partially right, take on a few technologies that are really going to help the student and the student experience. As you talk with schools, I'm getting to the point, I promise. As you talk with schools and you introduce them to TouchNet, you could look at this and say, that's a technology that's really, it's enhancing the experience. How does that really relate to retention and recruitment? What's that ROI look like as I invest in something like TouchNet? Because I know that conversation must come up, that there's a difference between a technology and a technology that helps the bottom line or it helps retention or so on. Talk to me about how that conversation generally goes as you introduce TouchNet to schools.
Sure. Yeah. I think, look, as I said a few minutes ago, I think there's a real expectation that students are bringing with them. And from my experience, I think schools are understanding that. Students expect a certain type of technology. They want everything to be contactless, right? Or they want to be able to use their phone for all these applications like we're talking about. So I think schools get that and understand that it's a retention tool in its own part, or maybe almost like table stakes, right? So I think there's that angle. I think schools also, student experience is an important thing. And I've heard time and again what I already said, schools understand that if there's a bad payment experience, that really leaves a bad taste, not just in the student's mouth, but in many cases in the parent's mouth as well, which is not something.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's just not something they want to see, right? It needs to be easy. And so I think that causes schools to consider investing in a company like TouchNet, because they know we can make that experience easy and modern and, easy to to go through for a student or a parent. And I also think there are, this is where we're sort of going as a company. I think there's a whole bunch of student outcome and kind of student, student outcome, I guess is the right phrase to use, applications around the data that are generated by systems like ours. We have a lot of information about payers. We have a lot of information about how campus cards are being used or campus IDs are being used. For sure, our schools are interested in trying to learn how we can, build some reports around those or have some algorithms that help us understand what student outcomes are being are happening based on those data points. So we still have some work to do to put that technology in place. And of course, we got to be very thoughtful about how we use that data and all those sorts of things. But that's where schools want to go. They want any data that can help them ensure student outcomes. They're going to try and get their hands on it. We want to facilitate that.
It's funny because all the time I do it myself, like Gordon Gekko and Wall Street, and he's got his 2-3 computers up and he's just watching everything happen in real time. And so there's this dashboarding, like, I don't know if it's still like this dream we have in higher ed, and some companies make it happen, some don't. You have dashboarding, I saw on your website that you can dashboard and you could get real-time insights and so on. That's like really important, right? We want to get higher education to the point where we're seeing how the student is experiencing things almost in real time. Is that a big value proposition for TouchNet to be able to say, like you kind of touched on it, like what's the activity? How often is the student paying? If they're not, how are they accessing resources, right? I think about something like mental health is something that comes up all the time. If you could track how often somebody is entering and exiting these resources with their student ID, that would tell you the ROI on your investment for wraparound services. There's a lot of insight that can be taken away from something like that.
100%. I mean, so I've been at TouchNet for 5 years, 5.5 years.
How many percent did you say? Just
100.
Wait, before you go in.
100%.
I couldn't get there fast enough, but go ahead.
When I joined TouchNet 5 years ago, this wasn't really, I would say, on schools' minds, to be totally open with you. And in my 5 years, I've really seen an evolution where now, when we have a customer advisory board meeting or things, this type of thing always comes up. So yeah, it's absolutely where schools want to go, and it's where we're going as a company too. So I think there's a great value add.
Yeah.
We have just released our first kind of generation of upgraded reporting, which isn't quite there yet. I would characterize what you're talking about as more on the analytics side, but it's the next several years, that's where we're going. And I think it'll provide a tremendous amount of value to our customers.
You said you had like 1,000 clients, 1,000 higher ed clients. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
What's the range of use case look like? I mean, you must have some that are just using the bare bones of something and somebody that's really nailing it. Can you give us an example of somebody on that far end of that spectrum, just crushing it with the TouchNet systems? What's happening? Is it transforming their institution? Are they getting insights? Talk about that example that you use to talk about your organization.
Sure. Yeah. And of course, we do see a wide range, but from what I've seen, I'm a career software guy, and I think most of our customers at TouchNet kind of push towards the all-in type side of the equation, which is pretty good to see because a lot of software companies aren't like that, we see, our vision, as I said up front, is every payment, every campus ID use case across the higher education landscape, and so just to talk about the payment side of that, we definitely see a fair percentage of our customers buying into that. So we're going to run all of our payments through TouchNet, and that includes not just kind of the TouchNet core stuff using TouchNet software, but also all the third-party software products that schools use. So we at TouchNet
many third-party products.
Many. I mean, we have 250, 300 certified partners at this point, something like that. TouchNet, we kind of realize we're an open infrastructure. We realize we're not going to have the best technology solution or the best software solution for everything you need. Or to say it differently, schools are going to need to use other third parties besides us. So as it pertains to payments in this example, those third parties integrate with us, and then they can run their payments through us as well. So school gets the same PCI and security benefits, can see it all in one place and reconcile. If they're using our processing, which we are processor agnostic for processing payments, but we certainly recommend schools use our processing because then we can basically manage the whole thing for them. Then they can reconcile all of that and understand how much they're spending on credit card expenses, et cetera, in a way that just no one else in our industry candidly can do.
conversely to that, who's that person? Who's that school? Don't, or if you want to use names of these schools, you can, but you don't have to. What's the other side of that spectrum look like? As you talk with bursar or technology officers, and the person's like, yeah, I don't know, and you want to grab them and shake them and go, wake up, because there are those folks within higher education, when it comes to technology or technology usage or upgrading or changing. Gosh darn it, said change, and this brings this great fear of uncertainty. There must be somebody out there you just want to grab them by the shoulders and shake them and say, if you don't change today, you're going to be left behind. I mean, those must happen too, right? And are these people that you never talk to again, or do they come back around a year later and go, you know what, Adam, you were right? Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So we encounter that, of course. And I would say, coming into this job 5 years ago from outside higher education, I would say that kind of process is a little longer here, and I think, you asked, do we just kind of leave them alone if they're not going to change or what? My view on that is we owe it to them to continually try and educate. We truly see ourselves as educators in the market. This can change your how you view the campus environment. This can help you run a better business office. This can give you a better student experience. All those things are good for you. So we just keep trying, and usually sooner or later they'll come around, or there'll be a different set of initiatives at school or whatever it might be to get people to look at it with fresh eyes, and then they'll adopt these technologies. So
speaking of fresh eyes, what did you think about higher ed coming out of a technology industry into higher ed? Did you go, oh wow, higher ed moves so darn fast. I've never seen anything like it. That must have been your first thought, right? I mean, what perceptions did you have coming in, and what would you tell your past self about higher ed?
It's an interesting question. So my perceptions were, I figured it would probably move a little slower, or at least maybe kind of buying process, technology selling process would move a little slower than what I'm used to. The other two companies I worked for kind of sold to the Fortune 500. So, and I think I was right about that. And of course, like everybody else, I'm like, I'm going to change that, and we'll do things and make things different. And maybe we've moved the needle a little bit, but at the same time that, the industry is what it is, right? Mm-hmm. I think the part I didn't really anticipate, and I can remember getting to TouchNet and people saying to me, well, our customers talk to each other. And I just remember thinking, like, I don't buy that at all, because you sell to the Fortune 500, they don't talk because they're competitors, right? And I very quickly learned, they do talk, and it's such a collaborative and cool, I guess it sounds silly to say collegial, but it is a collegial environment that I think is really cool. So I love working in higher education. I just feel like it's much more of a partnership. We're working together as a group, not just us with one school, trying to make things better for students, have better student outcomes, all those sorts of things. We really appreciate that about the market.
I love it. So how do we get a hold of you, Adam? If we got somebody on the line right now going, you know what, I'm not collecting as much money as I should. My systems, I've got 40 systems to do this. I probably need to take a look at investing in something like this to give a better experience to my students, collect more money at the same time. Where do we find you? What's the best place to get in touch with TouchNet? No pun intended.
www.touchnet.com. All kinds of great information up there. Request a demo, reach out to your sales rep. Great case studies, webinars coming up, all sorts of things. So that's probably the first place to stop.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. There he is. He is the president of TouchNet Information Systems. Here he is. He's Adam McDonald. And he is here on the EdUp Experience as your guest today. Adam, did you have a good EdUp experience?
I had a great experience. Thank you so much, Joe. This was a lot of fun.
Ladies and gentlemen, of course, my pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just EdUp'd. Commencement, the beginning of a new era in higher education, by Kate Colbert and Joe Salustio, with contributions by Elvin Freites, is now available for pre-order on Amazon. Get your Kindle edition or your softbound book. It's going to be
amazing.